Part of marketing attribution is as simple as marketing on the right platforms. Meta, which includes Facebook, the world's largest microblog, Instagram, WhatsApp, and now Threads, has over 3.8 billion users as of 2023. And Google, which really doesn't need an introduction, but if you want to put some numbers to it, has 4.3 billion users, which makes up about 92% of internet market share. So it's pretty common knowledge that these two platforms are massive. But is investing in these two platforms really a silver bullet for business success? In today's attribution episode, M Squared has rallied a panel of experts to talk about just that. How much are brands overspending on Meta and Google? And before we begin, I encourage all of the viewers to check out the experts on LinkedIn. Big shout outs to them, and now let's get into the episode.
Off the top of your head,
Sure.
percentage-wise, how much do you think brands are overspending on Meta and Google and in general? Is it like 50, just off the top of your head, what do you think?
No, it's not. I don't think that's the right way to think about this, honestly. Like if you ask PPJ, for example, how much are they overspending? That's kind of like that's not how Ovadia would ask the question, right? Ovadia would be like, ask the question, I'm willing to spend at $100 CAC, and where is my Facebook, right? That's really the question.
Correct.
If, for example, if he's at a $60 CAC, he will keep spending until he hits 100. It's not like he's got $1 million to spend, and that's the $1 million somebody gave him. It's his own business. He'd be like, dude, I won't spend $1 million if I don't have to. If it's losing me money, I'll just keep it in my pocket. I won't spend it, right? So he is trying to spend up to profitability, right?
It's a relative question on the goals, right? Like
to the goal
of the business.
Where are
like
you can ask
like for example, we have a new ROAS target, right? If we're hitting our new ROAS target like exactly, it's like, are we overspending? No. But let's say we're falling like 10% behind our new ROAS target, then we're probably overspending. And we need to cut some budget out from somewhere that's the least incremental spot.
But there is a different way to ask the same question, Jake, which is like one of the questions that Eli is talking about. Everybody's saying CAC. What's my CAC? The CAC, they may have a CAC of $50. The CAC blends in what's called a baseline for the business, which is if you turn off all advertising, you will not go to zero. You'll go to something. That's the baseline for the business without advertising. That, let's say, for example, for TPJ, it's 50%. So 50% of the business is just walking in the door. Okay. So if you look at the 50% of the business that they're acquiring through media, the CAC on that will be 2x what they're measuring for the business, right? So actually the ICAC is $100. Now everybody's thinking the last click numbers kind of approximate the CAC, right? So it looks like your Facebook attribution is telling you that the CPA is $50. You're like, yeah, okay, my CAC is $50, CPA is $50. But actually your ICPA on Facebook is like 120, 105.
Wow.
Right? Now, it just turns out that it kind of roughly approximates the business, so you're kind of okay with it. But if it turns out like, the baseline is moving in a different way, your actual ICAC for Facebook is 175, then you're losing your shit. Well,
Yes.
that's the point that it's not easy to
That's how TPJ is. Like 100 million%. There's a lot of people are coming in the door because friends talk about it, but it's also because they saw a Facebook ad maybe like 6 months ago, and then they heard about us from a friend. They still purchased, So
well, it's the reason. So the interesting thing is that, so we talked about Facebook virality for the perfect gene, right? So to Eli's point, yes, we know that there are people who are buying for perfect gene who did not come from Facebook. However, we also know if we turn off Facebook, we lose all of the noise around the brand, and maybe it's 3 months or 6 months, but without any Facebook ads, the brand is going to decline to, at some point, 0, right? If you make no noise, there's going to be very limited action at some point. So for every Facebook ad, there is a completely unmeasured virality coefficient, which was the term we used, that produces another purchase, 2 purchases, 3 purchases that we don't know how to measure that. It's impossible to measure because it's happening entirely offline, right? It's someone's wearing the jeans. Hey, what are you wearing? I love those jeans. Oh, it's this. You get a purchase. You turn off Facebook ads, you lose that, right? So the interesting thing with Gloria, go ahead.
No, sorry, finish your thought.
I was going to say the interesting thing with Gloria is that Perfect Gene is actually single channel, right? It's paid social. TikTok, whatever, Google, let's just say for simplicity, it's single channel. Gloria is not single channel. Gloria actually has real organic, real organic juice because she's posting on Instagram. She has 500,000 followers or 250,000 followers. She's sending product to influencers. Every time someone wears a jacket, it's a loud jacket. People see it, they're going to ask about it. So there's stuff. There's just action around her brand, which makes me think that Facebook is taking existing intent.
I'm gonna disagree.
And
I
well,
don't
we
think
saw
there's
it
that.
because she didn't spend $1 on.
I don't think.
for
Yeah, maybe
18
back in
months.
the day, but I think lately, the last 18 months, there's been very little action on her brand.
No, but the brand held steady at about 75K a month on average for 18 months. So there's acquisition
okay.
happening,
Yeah.
and definitely Facebook helped. But we thought Facebook should have added $50,000 a month, and we only saw revenue go from 75 to 85, 95, 100. Right. So we weren't seeing the amount that we thought we did because someone already had intent to purchase, or they heard about it on Instagram. Facebook looks at it and says, this person wants to purchase, show an ad. And it shows the ad and that person purchases, and Facebook takes the attribution. Plus the repeat customer stuff, where most likely there's minimal lift, or at least less lift than on the prospecting side. The question that we're trying to figure out is how many people is Facebook legitimately and only introducing to the brand? And that's what we want to isolate. And that's where you get your incrementality, is what is the true percent of people that Facebook influence to purchase? And the only way to really understand that is to say, let's advertise on Facebook here. Let's not advertise on Facebook there. And that gives you the final number, which is, as clean a number as you could get.
Huge thank you to Ovadia Lebaton of The Perfect Gene, Eli Esagov, Jake Mahani, and of course Madan Bardwaj for that clip. And we actually managed to reach out to a few more experts to get their take. So here's Daniel Paul on if and why brands are overspending on Meta and Google.
My clear answer to this question is it depends. But in all seriousness, it really depends on the business, the goal the business has set for themselves, and if and how certain channels are incrementally contributing to this goal. And sometimes it's more Meta, sometimes it's more Google, and other times it's another channel like TikTok or even TV. It's hard to give a blanket statement on that. And also keeping in mind, Meta and Google have the most data available from all publishers out there. With the smartest developers working for these companies, they should also have the best algorithm to achieve my brand's goal, no? Well, at least in theory. Traditionally, I see most spend allocated to Meta. I see sometimes even 70, 80%. Even if last click data and other sources telling us that allocation to Meta is way too oversaturated. In those cases, we usually allocate more budget to Google, as we know from incrementality tests that Google has usually a much higher incrementality, especially for search and standard shopping. However, I hear often the argument, especially made by Meta reps and often repeated without challenging even the statement, is that down the line, the brand will suffer and brand equity will decline and potentially even go out of business if you pull out of Meta or if you not spend enough on Meta. I personally believe that's a myth. I have yet to see an independent and trustworthy study to prove that. But even more importantly, how do we know that the potential loss in brand equity with less spend on Meta is not covered on other channels? There is no proof in that. I think it's just great PR and scare tactic by sales teams.
So we are coming in hot with the attribution conversations. Here's Ellen Pullman with her take. Don't go anywhere.
How much are we overspending on Meta and Google? What a great question. My thought goes towards where are we taking this brand and what is our strategy, right? Because we're going to lose customers every year. They're not going to repurchase. And we're going to want to replace them with new customers. We might even want to grow beyond where we are today. But if we start to tip the balance and get more existing customers to repurchase, could we take marketing dollars that we spend with Meta and Google and redirect them towards loyalty? Constantly monitoring the lifetime value of the newbies that we're bringing on board versus the existing customers. And also, if somebody shares the brand with a friend, do we give them the ability to be rewarded for that behavior, so that it's not a blind spot? And we know whether that pass along is coming from our spend or from our existing customer base. It's really where do we invest the dollars? If the dollars are productive dollars, are they the most productive dollars where they're being spent? And that's where the attribution and the testing and trying to reduce the blind spots comes in. And it's never going to be perfect, right? But we can keep getting closer.
Big shout out to Ellen for dropping that knowledge for us, but don't go anywhere. I got one more great clip for you guys. I got Ali Lichtenberg here telling us for real if it's worth it for brands to be popping off spending on Meta and Google. Check this out.
Hey y'all, Ali Lichtenberg here with a hot take on Attribution Radio, answering the question, are marketers overspending on Meta and Google, and by how much? So Meta and Google, both walled gardens, but very different in terms of the pitfalls that marketers face when using these platforms. Within Google, I would say the issue is less about overspending and more so about the misallocation of budget between brand and non-brand search. In brand search, if a marketer has been using only last touch metrics in their decision making, it's not uncommon to see these brands be overinvested by 30 to 40%, even more in extreme cases. At the same time, these brands are likely underinvested in non-brand search. And again, this happens because it's that last touch data driving marketers towards these decisions. But as soon as some form of advanced attribution is applied to the last touch data, it becomes readily apparent that the investment split between brand and non-brand needs to flip. Once that lens is applied, most of the overinvestment in brand search can easily be reallocated to non-brand, and the marketer would still have money left over that could be used to test higher funnel brand awareness tactics like CTV. Now, without needing to find additional budget, brands are able to move up the funnel and test tactics that were previously out of reach. This is so important. I believe one of the best ways to recession-proof a business is long-term, steady investment in the upper funnel. In these economic times, it's never been more imperative to jumpstart these brand awareness tactics. Now, Facebook is interesting and a slightly different case than Google. Here, it's a question of how much is a brand allocating towards retargeting versus prospecting within the platform. Maybe 5 years ago, we would have seen brands spending 80 to 90% of their Facebook budget in retargeting, with only 10 to 20% dedicated to prospecting tactics. However, these days, it's much less common to see a brand's Facebook tactics that far out of balance. We now tend to see brands be closer to that ideal mix of 80 to 90% prospecting, 10 to 20% retargeting, even when primarily relying on last touch metrics, which is great news for brand marketers. So why the difference between Google and Meta? Why have brands been faster to rebalance their Meta investment versus Google? Well, I have a few theories. One, in Facebook retargeting, it's much more obvious how much spend is being wasted when the marketer who set up the Facebook campaign gets retargeted with multiple versions of their own ads in just a few minutes. Number two, over the last few years, Meta has done a great job encouraging brands to see the value in prospecting tactics by providing brands with additional data points besides last touch metrics. Think engagement metrics, brand lift studies, brand recall studies, and now even sales lift studies. These other data points have been giving marketers the support they needed to move dollars further up the funnel. While this has worked out well for brands, as supported by advanced attribution calculations, let's remember that this wasn't entirely altruistic on Meta's part. Meta, as always, knew what it was doing, because there will always be a limited amount of money that can possibly be spent in retargeting versus prospecting, which, dare I say, is almost limitless. Meta knew that in order for their own revenue to grow, they needed brands to buy into the benefits of prospecting, so much so that they would continue scaling prospecting. Meanwhile, search results are not something staring us in the face all day while we're catching up on our friends' birthday parties. And of course, searching your own brand and having a competitor show up in the top slot keeps many CEOs insisting their marketers stay overinvested in brand search, even when the marketer knows better. And let us remember, in 2022, Google made over $162 billion from search, which accounted for more than 57% of their total revenue. However, brands have been using search is working for Google. So why fix what isn't broken for them?
Big shout out to Ali for the insights, and I got one final piece of the puzzle here for this conversation. This comes from Gail Buffington, the head of analytics at Millipore Sigma, so check this out.
Hi, this is Gail Buffington for Attribution Radio, answering the question, are advertisers overspending on Meta and Google? I think the one that's a little more clear-cut is Meta, in that with Meta, there's so much competition in specific demographics that it's very easy to overspend just because you're not only competing against your competitors, you're up against anyone who wants to target that demographic. And for the most part, in order to get to what you really need in terms of reach, and many times you have to go with these broader audiences that, again, are going to cost more to reach, and you're going to lose a lot of that efficiency. So it's very easy to quickly overspend and not get that incremental return you're looking for.
Huge thank you to all the expert contributors to this conversation. And before we sign off, I'd like to underline a few key points for you guys real quick. I think the fact that Google and Meta are walled garden platforms is important because their owners have complete control of outreach via their algorithms, which also change periodically. This, combined with the sheer size of these platforms, means that, as Ali pointed out, allocation is the key in regards to media spend. The distinction between upper funnel prospecting spend and lower funnel retargeting can really make all the difference for company success. The popular rule of thumb of having an 80-20 split for prospecting and retargeting echoes this mindset, which can limit channel cannibalization rates to get a better read on a business's net online influence. This influence is often predicated on the algorithm, which, dumbed down, is basically just a mystical set of numbers that says how data should operate. These algorithms are used to curate content to tailor an online experience. Do you like a certain type of product? Dislike certain content? Your votes are registered through metrics like likes, dislikes, follows, and watch time. Over time, these algorithms change to keep up with general trends in preferences for types of content that can really keep people engaged. The whole reason these brands adjust their algorithms is to shift the paradigm to more addicting material. Brands and content creators know this all too well. These brands do extensive research to figure out what keeps people glued to their apps. This is what allows them to make money through ad revenue and subscription services. It's all predicated on watch time. For Meta specifically, as of Q1 of 2023, there's been a 3.41% year-over-year rise in Facebook usage alone, largely due to older people who have more purchasing capability. This, as Ali pointed out, is why they're pushing for brands to keep spending on what seems to be a limitless cap on prospecting potential. The more brands that adopt this mindset, the more powerful this tactic becomes, because these platforms are net goods. The digital Hunger Games for people's viewership online not only lines Meta's pockets, but of the brands that are able to maximize their product's potential market share, something that can be honed through advanced attribution and incrementality testing. For Google, I can't put this much better than what was said before in the conversation. Google's bottom line dictates that brands throw their money at search. And I don't know when the last time someone used a search engine besides Google or maybe Safari or Bing, but just for fun, here are a couple of search engines you've probably never heard of. First, we got Alta Vista, which sounds like a 5-star golfing resort, right? And Ask Me Now, which I've never heard of, but that sounds like the trial run for ChatGPT, right? But like, for real, in all seriousness, Google is the king of all search engines with 92% usage, which means that the digital space that they own is a hot commodity. The pages for search results on Google create scarcity that channel major perspective values for all types of brands. So I guess the short answer from what I gathered is that there is no blanket statement for all types of brands on whether they're spending too much on Google or Meta. But most of the time, not really. These large tech companies have such a stranglehold on online real estate that if budget is spent tactically, it'll still yield results. And knowing how to do that at the highest level comes with working with experienced professionals in advanced attribution and incrementality testing. And you know where the best place to do that is, right? M2 is the spot to learn about all things advanced attribution, where to get help on your specific projects, and learn how to navigate the industry for yourself. So yeah, till next time guys, I'll catch you in the next episode.